Hey y'all, welcome to Barstools and Bourbon. I've almost messed up our name.
I always say bourbon and
Oh my
Barstools,
gosh,
so
I almost messed
seriously,
it up.
You're the worst.
Jeremy James.
Lahannah and
And we have two special guests today because as you can tell, we're not sitting at Copper and Oak. We're on location at Limestone Branch Distillery in Lebanon, Kentucky. And we're going to pitch it back to you just in a second.
Welcome back. We are here at Limestone Branch Distillery. Seriously, it's been a treat for us so far today. We've gotten to look a little bit behind the scenes at their distilling process, and it's so cool because it's so much smaller, more intimate, and I really highly suggest everyone take a stop here at Limestone Branch. We have a special guest today. I'll let him introduce himself.
I am Steve Beam, the founder and co-founder and distiller here at Limestone Branch.
So, Steve Beam.
Beam.
Now that name sounds familiar. I mean, someone that's a little bit into tune with Kentucky bourbon.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit of connection, right?
Right.
So, what, fifth? How many generations back was
We're
that?
at 7 generations from Jacob Beam.
Right.
The
Wow.
original Beam who came here.
Nice.
So Fred over at Jim Beam and I are the same generation.
I
Nice.
actually met Fred last night. He was in Copper and Oak.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was really cool. Okay,
Nice.
do you want to tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about what you all are doing here at Limestone Branch?
Yeah, so we started in 2012, so we're just a very small distillery. We make about 40 barrels a month right now. And so in comparison to, I always say my cousins spill more in a day than we make in a month. But yeah, so very small, very tactile. Like you said, the tours, you get to see how everything is done, by taste and smell and temperature. No computers here.
Right.
Our guys don't sit behind a computer and read a screen. We're out actually taking readings and tasting and things, and that's how we do it. So very, very much old school.
Right.
The way it would have been done, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So when we were in
And that's char.
right behind,
Oh, char. Very nice.
right behind the building, you all had this warehouse that had like the 15-gallon barrels. You can tell me a little bit about what's going on in there because it was interesting.
Yeah, the 15-gallon barrels are a really great way for us to test what's going on, where we want to be, for me to be able to use different types of grains, see how they're maturing. A 15-gallon barrel mimics a 53 fairly closely. The ratio is wood to wood ratio is, I think it's like 13.8 or something like that, would be comparable to a 53. So 15 is fairly close to a 53 gallon. And
So that's your mad scientist laboratory and everything back in there, right?
Right, and we do things like 100% malted rye. We've done a caramel malt. We did one with chocolate malt, which was
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic.
I think the notes on that was Cocoa Puffs and Baker's chocolate. I
Yeah.
think that was incredible.
So-
It was one of my favorites so far. out
Nice.
there.
That's one of the ones I was impressed with in tasting was it the 100% malted rye because
Yes.
it was so different from what I expected, but it was still very impressive. I
Right.
loved it. It wasn't like overly hot, but you could really taste all of like the herbal notes and everything else in it.
And those are coming out of a 15, so they're not going to have the depth and the finish that you would get in a 53 over
Right.
a longer time. But it gives you an idea as to how it will develop.
Where that would go if you
Right.
did it for 53 over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So what's your oldest bourbon that you've got in your facilities right now?
We have, our oldest would have been from 2012.
Right. So an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Okay. Very nice.
And but we have just very, very few of that. When we first started out, we're trying to keep the doors open,
Right.
and moonshine was having a moment.
Right.
Moonshine had a moment there for a bit, and so we did a lot of moonshines while we were still working on bourbon. But more moonshine in the beginning than bourbon, and we've slowly switched over. And then when we partnered with Luxco in 2015 and brought the Yellowstone brand, Yellowstone goes back in Kentucky,
Yeah.
1872.
A little bit of heritage.
Yeah, we
Oh,
just
yeah.
learned that.
Coming up on our 150th anniversary, and anybody of a certain age knows Yellowstone,
Right.
or their grandfather had Yellowstone, or father had Yellowstone on the bar.
Nice.
Because in the 60s and 70s, 1/3 of all Yellowstone, all the bourbon in Kentucky was Yellowstone. So
1/3.
1/3. Wow. So it was a massive brand.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to be able to partner with Limestone, bring that brand to Limestone Branch, and that's when we really got serious and started focusing on our bourbon.
Right. So now you're distilling here on site,
Yes.
and then you're aging. Are you? Did I hear correct at Luxco?
At Luxco. Yes.
Luxco, yeah.
Over in Bardstown. They're our partner. We're eventually going to put a small barrel house here, more for educational.
Sure.
But they have the main warehouse up there.
Look, have you been to Luxor?
I have not.
It is gorgeous out there.
Nice.
Yeah,
It's
beautiful.
a gorgeous place.
Beautiful facility, beautiful property.
Yes, my husband and I just went back a couple months ago, and we were really impressed by it.
The one thing that impresses me the most here, because with all things Kentucky bourbon, it's always about story. It's always about legacy. Obviously, the Beam legacy, going all the way back to the old Trump Distillery, and even the tin that was procured from the old distillery.
Right.
I would say in the middle of the night, but I'm not sure.
We don't know the details.
I don't know the details.
It's fine.
You know, if
We're
there's any
implicating
open cases, I'm not sure about any of it. But that's the one thing I love about this distillery is that history that's ingrained in so much of what you do.
Yeah. You know, when you talk about the tin, like on the roof
Right.
of the walkway back there, it's really kind of special for me to be able to walk under that and know that that same metal, 100 years ago, my great grandfather was working under
Right.
that.
Right.
So it's really a touch back to the past.
Now, did I hear correctly that this is the only active distillery that's actually owned by a bean from the original family, correct?
Yes, that's an ownership in the.
Nice. So a lot of them share the name,
Right.
but we've got bloodline and lineage and all kinds of good stuff.
And they were most of the beans worked with distilleries, and not only a lot of them owned their own distillery.
Very
You know,
cool.
it's a massive undertaking
Sure.
at any time. So
Well, you got to get to. I mean, usually you got to get to at least 2 to 4 years
right.
before you start making some money on your bourbon, which is why you make gin and vodkas and everything else.
Speaking of the gin, so I'm a super big whiskey girl, but every once in a while, a gin martini is where it's at for me. And I like mine as dry as you can get. I do not like the olive juice in it, but I put a couple of olives in there for a snack at the end. So this Bolin and Birch gin, if you have not had it, seriously, all the florals and botanicals come out in it. It's such an easy drinking gin, because that's what I hear from a lot of people is that this is harsh and they don't like the aftertaste. This has none of that. So whatever conception you have about gin right now, I highly suggest reaching out, trying this. So we carry it at Copper and Oak. If you don't want to buy the whole bottle yet, come and try it, and I'm sure it will give you a whole new outlook on the gin world, because it's really good.
It's good. I mean, I like it. I'm not a gin guy. I'm a strictly like hardcore bourbon guy.
Strictly?
No, not even.
Oh, I was like, I drink some alcohol sometimes.
No, but it's good. I mean,
Alcohol.
and I'm not really accustomed to gin, but you can definitely taste those botanicals and smell those botanicals.
Yes.
Now my palate's not there for gins to be able to pull, but I did smell almost like a lemongrass and that type of thing
Right.
within
Yes.
the gin. It was really nice.
It's a solid product.
Yep.
Yeah, well, my background is in botanicals, and so we
Right.
have a lot of gardens here, and so it's just kind of a natural progression into the gin. And many of the botanicals are, I won't say native to here because they're introductions, like
Right.
things like honeysuckle and black cherry, mulberry, blackberry. All those go into the gin, which is kind of a uniquely Kentucky thing as well. And the process that we use, it's a distilled process. It's not infused, so it's distilled, and we have a couple different. We're gonna get one over.
Special guest stars.
Look at all the puppies.
They're going like crazy.
Love
Yeah. So, so we use a special process with the way we distill it, and have 2 different gin baskets so that you get those lighter, really aromatics that come
Right.
off quickly and are preserved in that gin. And that's why when you open it up, you get those really light floral and citrus notes.
Nice.
Interesting.
Well, anything else you want to share with us about what you've got going on down here?
Well, we've got our bottled and bond to be out in about a year and a half,
Nice.
which of course will be all of ours.
Right.
It'll be
Oh,
6 years old.
Nice.
So we
okay.
waited a little bit extra time, to let it mature.
wow! I didn't know about
Because
that.
that's I
Do we
mean,
need to be on the list? Is there a list?
Yeah, it will be somewhat limited, but there'll be enough for you for sure.
okay.
Okay.
Good,
We get on the list. We like those unicorns.
Because any more of that bottled and bond is the standard that most folks are looking for. I mean, everybody starts out at the 90s and whatnot. Like to try and get around there, but that bottled and bond tends to be that standard that folks are really after.
Right, especially now, and it's important for us to have it, but I didn't want to rush it. And
Right.
That's why you can do a bottled and bond at 4 years
Right.
old, but we chose to do it at 6.
Nice.
Just because I wanted that extra time.
I like it.
I'm excited for
Like
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be good.
And then of course the limited edition this year too.
Yeah.
Finished in Armagnac. Yeah,
We just had that one. It was good.
fantastic.
So you do a limited edition every year, almost like an Old Forester birthday
Right.
and whatnot. So
Comes
you're
out
doing
in the fall every year.
gotcha, and so you're doing those, and I think those are you still got some available.
We
here
still
in the
have
shop.
some here at the shop, and they're still around in the liquor stores and things
Gotcha.
here in Kentucky. And it's finished in Armagnac. Everything I finish, I try to use just to supplement, the flavors of the bourbon. So I don't want to overpower it. I just want to supplement, enhance it, and maybe extend just a little bit. So you get a little bit of the dark fruit notes
Right.
that are not really prevalent in the bourbon, so that kind of extends it. But it's a nicely balanced, and it's still bourbon forward.
Right.
You're drinking bourbon, and that's really important to
Nice.
me.
And that's this year's is a 7-year at 101, correct?
Right.
Nice.
And then finish for about 5 months in the Armagnac.
I like it. I did notice you definitely had that finishing flavor that you had in there for sure. It was definitely bourbon forward. I mean, there's no confusing it with
Yeah.
something that's infused or something
Right.
along those lines where it's like all cherry and that's almost medicinal. It was definitely bourbon forward, but you have a nice finished flavor with it. I like it a lot. So, well, great. We've got another guest
Yeah.
as well. I don't mean to kick you out of your own chair. But we've got your whiskey ambassador here,
And right hand man.
and right hand
Right-hand
man,
man.
head cook, bottle washer, the whole nine.
He's been around with us from almost the beginning, and he's really helped make us successful. And anybody who's ever been on a tour down here with Stephen knows, he's a special kind of person.
I won't forget this tour. He made us laugh many
Oh
times.
my gosh!
Many times. There was one joke, I don't know what it was. I asked him to tell him, what's it called? Oh, it's about porn.
Oh
I
yeah,
asked him to tell a joke while we were doing this. It was really funny. He had us
really,
laughing.
it was really corny. Well,
And with that,
we'll invite Steve over.
Thank you.
Speaking of corn,
Yeah, speaking of corn,
Speaking of corn.
Steve, would you like to introduce yourself to our following?
sure. My name is Stephen Fante. I'm the Whiskey Ambassador for Limestone Branch Distillery, and over in front of the house with Jan Patizzi here. And we do tours and tastings 7 days a week. And majority of my job is presenting our products and the image and likeness of what Mr. Bean put into them first, which is phenomenal juice.
I like it. Well, I would hazard a guess that second to Mr. Bean himself, that you probably know more about the lineage getting to where we are today than just about anybody else, right?
I still stumble through it. There's a lot of great guys out there, like Bernie Lubbers, for example. He worked for Jim Bean for quite a while before he went to Heaven Hill, and he knows a lot of lineage. We've got some bourbon writers out there, Michael Veach, for example, that delves into the depths of the Bean family history. But yes, next to these guys, I can say probably I know a lot more about the Bean family history than most.
I bet, for sure. Well, what would you like to share with our folks as we move forward?
Well, the experience here, more than anything, you're going to be out on the bourbon trail and you're going to visit some of these major distilleries and you're going to have a great experience, but it's going to be a different experience than what you're going to have at a craft distillery. So what I'd like for you to do is when you make your plans to go out on the bourbon trail, just take and sprinkle in a few of us craft distilleries so that you can see both the large and the small operations
Absolutely.
and see the differences between those nuances that are created in a small craft distillery. And taste some things that are unique and different. than the mainline bourbons that are out there.
And when you say that, we've done a lot of bourbon tours, and I don't even necessarily think it's better or worse. It's just different. Like when you go to the big guys, like when you go to Maker's Mark, one of the OGs, I'm in awe of how much they can produce in a day, and watching how flawless their system is amazing. But then coming over here and actually looking behind the scenes and getting more detail, there's something really special to be said for that. Like, I want to say this has to have been one of my most favorite tours ever, just because I've even been to other craft distilleries, but you went into so much that we had never heard and learned before.
Most of your tour guides have not been the right hand of Stephen Bean.
Right.
And there's
Most
that.
of your tour guides have not grown up in the industry. 25 years in the coffee industry, and my largest client was Brown Forman Corporation.
Okay.
And as key
Really?
accounts manager for Brown Forman Corporation, I had full access to their entire campus, and I knew everybody on their staff, including Lincoln Henderson, who was the one that created Woodford Reserve by setting back Old Forester barrels originally. And then Lincoln went on to open Angel's Envy.
Right.
And now I know Wes Henderson and the family through being out there. I've known Bill Samuel since I was a kid. We were making Maker's Mark coffee all the way back when I was a young man on a route and still had hair. And before that, I mean, all of the Brown family, Owsley and all those guys, always been, in my opinion, what Kentucky is all about. And, besides horse racing, you've got bourbon,
Yeah.
and you've got beautiful, beautiful farms.
We live, Jeremy, he's in Danville, I'm in Stanford,
Yep.
right near Danville, and the drive here was
Gorgeous.
beautiful.
Yes,
Beautiful.
it,
And then halfway through my drive, our videographer, Graham Jackson, popped up behind me. Thank God he was late as well as me.
Well, excellent, excellent. So we're going to do some tastings. Do you want to join us with some tastings, or
Sure.
well, that'd be
Walk
phenomenal.
us around.